Hi guys, how's it going? And welcome to a bit of a garden maintenance video. So I thought I'd just sort of take you through our gardens and just show you how I sort of maintain different bits in the garden. So deadheading, cutting back, making room for other things. Yeah, and I just sort of show you per plant what I do, just give you some tips basically on how to do things. Weeding is just a given, so I'm not going to show you how to do that. I'm sure you're well aware of how to weed, but that is just a given. So I do need to do some weeding, especially in the front garden. I've not done any weeding yet for a couple of weeks. Back garden, I've done quite a bit, so it's looking a little bit tidier. But I thought we'd start off first with this plant, which is my gorgeous lupin, and it's been looking so gorgeous, but it's just coming that time now where they're going to need to be cut back. So this is the gorgeous lupin, and you know, there's still a little bit of sort of fresh growth on the top, but as you can see, as you go further down, they're starting to look a bit sort of old. So basically when lupins start, they start at the bottom, start to flower and work their way up. So the first bit at the bottom is the first bit to flower, and then as you can see, the last bit is the sort of top bit. But as you can see, if I sort of zoom in a little bit more, you can see this bottom bit here now is starting to produce seed, which is not what we want, because if that just all goes to seed, the plant is going to have less energy to putting into more blooms, and it's just going to put loads of energy into the seed, which we don't want, because we want loads of new blooms. So as you can see, there are some fresh blooms coming. So what we want to do is the plant to put all that energy into these new blooms. So the order of today, or the start of the order of today, is to cut these beautiful blooms down, and then it'll only be a couple of weeks until we have some more gorgeous blooms again. So I'll just show you how I do it. So if you follow the bloom stock down, all the way down here, so you can see where there's some new buds forming here. So I don't want to go down too far, I want to leave those intact. So what I'm going to do is just chop above one of those new blooms, and then that stalk's going to put more energy into those lovely new blooms. So I'm just going to go around this whole plant and just do the same for all of them. So here we go. So this is what we're left with. So as you can see, there's already some new blooms starting to flower, albeit a little bit smaller, but there's loads and loads of new buds as well. So hopefully it'll put lots of energy into those, and we'll have some gorgeous blooms in a couple of weeks. So the next plant I want to tackle is this Aquilegia behind me. So this has been blooming since sort of early spring. It's been looking really, really gorgeous, but the flowers are looking a little bit tired. So I am going to end up deadheading it, and I'll just show you how I do it. So here she is. So as you can see, there's still some really, really gorgeous blooms. So really fresh blooms. But what I might do, so I'll just see if there's still quite a lot of blooms on the stalk, I might just go and individually deadhead these. So for instance, this one, I think there's quite a few good blooms still left. So I'm just going to individually chop these blooms off. If I get to one where most of the flowers, so if you have a look at this one here, most of the flowers here have gone and done. So what I do with this one is go all the way down to the base of the plant and then chop that off. So I'll just do that. So you find the bloom that you want to chop off, follow it down the stalk until you get to another branching, and then nip it off. There you go, that looks much better. So all we're left with now, oh, we've got one left, hang on. There we go. So all we're left with now is some really nice blooms with some buds as well. So that'll continue flowering really nicely, and when those get old, I'll then chop it back again. So this one here, as I said, I think most of these are pretty much done. Yeah, so what I think I'm going to do with this one is take it all the way back down to this one here and then chop that back. So following it all the way down, all the way to the bottom, and then chopping that back. There we go. So I'll just finish the rest of this plant off. So as you can see, if you do leave the flowers, all the petals start to fall off, but they will then start to form these seeds. So these are the seeds that they're forming. So again, you can just leave this plant to form seeds, but again, they just won't push new growth, and they'll put all the energy into the seeds rather than producing more flowers. So I'm just going to snip that one off, and that's the last one to go. There we go. Right, so that is looking a lot better. So I've left quite a few flowers there because there were loads that were still really, really good, and you can see the ones that I've sort of chopped off around the edges. So once these all sort of, the flowering's all finished, what I'll do is come and chop all of it back down to sort of the leaf canopy, and then it might reflush, it might not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So the next one is this creeping phlox. So as you can see, these were the flowers, so really, really gorgeous light purple flowers. These bloom from sort of really early spring, but as you can see, they've all basically gone. So all of these used to be flowers, and they're all going to seed as well. So what I'm going to do is just give it a light prune sort of all the way across here. So just take the ends off, because I'm not going to individually go around and cut each bloom off because that would take too long. So I'm just going to give it a light shear. So I'm just going to go in, just sort of chop a little layer off so I get most of the old blooms. So there you go. So I've just sort of chopped the flower stalks back, and I've just sort of made it into a bit of a neat mound. So yeah, hopefully we might get another second flush of blooms on this plant. We will see. So on to my next shrub, and this one is a beautiful rose. So this is a floribunda rose. So floribunda means basically you get lots of blooms on one stalk. So you've got your one stalk there, and then off it comes lots of blooms. What normally happens with the floribunda roses is they're actually grafted. So I'll just show you down here. If you can see that sort of knot over there, what happens is they'll graft the top rose, which is the rose that you want for sort of blooms. They'll actually graft it onto a different rootstock, so a different rose rootstock. So it might be more of a hardier rose, something that can take sort of, you know, it's hardier against severe weather, disease, root rot, that kind of thing. So they tend to graft them onto these other rootstocks, and then obviously have the top part of the rose being the rose that you actually want for its blooms, which on this rose it's just started to open. Look at that, look how pretty that is. So what I did notice though is, I don't know if you can see this long stalk coming out, so that doesn't look anything like the actual other rose stems. So I think that's actually come off the original root stock. So if you follow it all the way down, you can see all the way down, it goes all the way to the bottom into the sort of lower part, so below the rootstock. So I think that's actually part of the rootstock. So what I need to do is chop that back, because we don't want that, because that's from the rootstock. What we want is these gorgeous blooms. So I'm just going to chop that out. So I'm going to follow it all the way down to the ground, as low as I can make it. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And I'm going to chop it. There you go. So that's that stalk. So as you can see, it just looks nothing like that leaf and that leaf. It just looks nothing like it. And also with this sort of really straight stem, it doesn't look anything like the other rose, so I know that that wasn't the same same rose. So there you go, that's that one done. So the next one, we're still in the front border. So the next one is this Armeria. So this has again been blooming its head off since early spring. It's been a really, really good colour for the garden border, but as you can see, there are some blooms that are just gone brown, so they've passed it and they just make everything look a bit dirty. Look, you can see over there. So these are nice new ones, these really bright white ones, and then you've got the really sort of dark ones that are past it. So I think with this one, because we've still got quite a few really nice blooms, I'm not going to shear it all the way back. I'm just going to individually cut off the sort of browny flowers and then leave the really nice ones to carry on blooming. So if most of these were brown and there was only maybe 1, 2 or 3 of the fresh blooms, I would then go in and just chop all the stalks back, going all the way back to the bottom. But I think in this case I can leave most of it and just chop the sort of brown bits back. So what you do is just come down, follow that all the way down to the leaf canopy, chop it down, and that's it. So there you go, looking much better. So we're just left with these really nice white pom-pom blooms. Look at those, they're beautiful. I think that's the biggest one actually. See if it will focus. There we go. And as you can see as well, there are some new buds forming as well. So that's going to carry on flowering. So the next plant I'm going to look at is this Laurapetalum. So this is quite a new plant I planted that I planted this year. So it's still very, very small. But as you can see, there's some dry leaves. So what I'm going to do is just kind of pull them off, pull the leaves off. If there's any sort of brown leaves, just sort of clear them out. So nice and easy. And then what I might do, because this stem is kind of a little bare, I'm going to chop it back down. So finding, I don't know if you can see here, there's some little new bud there. So what I'm going to do is just chop it just above that new leaf bud. And then that's just going to leave it to reflush with some nice leaves. So again, that one's looking a little bit long and lanky. Chopping that back, and it just makes it look a lot nicer. Get rid of some of the leaves. These ones are looking a bit brown as well. Let's chop those off. Get rid of those. There we go. Oh, another one. So that's looking a lot better. So yeah, just getting rid of any sort of dying, dead or diseased branches as well. So any sort of plant that you look at, just see if you can see any sort of dead branches or dying or diseased. And then yeah, just chopping them back. So that is it for the front garden bed. So as you can see, there's just a few little piles of bits. So really not much to do at the moment for this garden bed, which is good. Right, on to the back garden beds. So just before we move on, I am just loving this colour combo here. So we've got this really dark foliage of the heuchera with the little bloom spikes, and then coming into the lady's mantle, and then the little Aquilegia. I think they look really, really pretty together. Really, really nice contrast of leaf colour, and the blooms kind of match. So coming back, just on the way to the back borders, I've just noticed that this container, I mean, it's been blooming its head off since early spring. This is probably one of the first things I planted on video actually, I think. But if you can see, as you can see, the pansies are just getting a little bit leggy. So they're getting really, really long and leggy. So what I think I'm going to do, even though the blooms look really, really nice, what I think I'm going to do is sort of chop it back down to just above one of the stems or a leaf bud, and then we're just going to chop them back and then hopefully they'll reflush, but just a bit more compactly. Instead of getting really long and leggy, because I do want to see the rest of the plants in there. So we've got a really nice vinca in here, and we've got a boxwood in the centre as well. So I'm just going to chop those back, and then hopefully they will rebloom again. So just kind of coming back, chopping that back, and then you're sort of left with that stem. So it's still got a nice flower on it, but hopefully we'll get some more buds and more flowers coming off that. So there you go, all the pansies cleaned up. What I do want to do as well is just sort of trim this boxwood. So what I'm trying to do is actually grow it and shape it into a bit of a round ball. So I'm just going to just sort of trim it a little bit so it's sort of in more of a ball shape, and then we'll see what it looks like at the end. So I'm just going to come in and just sort of start to sort of trim it off into a little bit of a ball shape. So there you go, I've just given a little light prune and just sort of try to make it into a bit of a round ball, and that's just going to hopefully push more growth again. It's going to keep growing, and I'm just going to keep doing that maybe sort of 2-3 times a year, and then it'll hopefully end up this really nice big globe. So actually looking at the planter, I think I've changed my mind. I think what I'm going to do is actually pull these pansies out because they're just looking a bit rough. So I think I'm going to pull those out, and then I might get some new plants from the garden centre and plant up some more summer flowers. So yeah, time that these came out. Sorry pansies, I did want to save you, but alas, they are coming out. So that looks a little bit better. So I'm just going to leave that as it is, and then when I get down to the garden centre next, which will be very, very soon, I'm sure, I'll get some nice summer flowering plants to go in, and I'll sort of pop them in where the little gaps are, where the pansies were. I'll pop those in. So here we are in the back garden, and I've just got a little bit of work to do in this little front rockery bed. So I'll just show you what I need to do. So this is one of our peonies. So this is a light pink flowering one. So you can kind of just see what colour the blooms were. This is the last one that finished flowering actually. The other ones have done quite a long time ago. But as you can see, there's some blooms there that just need to be chopped off. So it's really weird. Some of these didn't sort of open up properly. So we had quite a few nice big blooms, and there's some that just didn't end up opening up. So I'm not sure why that was. I might do a little bit of reading up and just see if there's anything else I need to be doing it, maybe some more fertiliser or something, just to make them all open up next year. But we did have quite a few nice blooms as well. So what I need to do is just chop off. So if you just pull the petals off, you'll see here that it's starting to produce its seeds. So what I'm going to do is just chop that off. So I'll just follow it down to the next stem. So if you can see here, follow it down to that bit there, and then I'm going to chop it. There you go. And it's just going to make it look a bit tidier. That's all for this one. It's not going to rebloom or anything, but it's just to make it look a bit tidier. There we go. So that's just nice and tidied up there. Just looking nice and green. So the next plant I want to tackle is this lovely Osteospermum. So again, it's just a case of deadheading. So there's some flowers that are past it, so you don't have to deadhead these, but I think they look better once you deadhead them, and I think it encourages new blooms as well. So I'm just going to deadhead those. So again, same as the other ones, go down to the first leaf bud and chop it off. So here is quite a big Shasta daisy. It's getting huge and huge, and I have already trimmed on this one, but I think I need to just trim it up a little bit more because it does tend to sort of just branch out into all the other plant space. So what I'm going to do, I think, is just sort of try and trim this little bit out. And also, if you sort of look into the back where the clematis is, you can see some stalks just kind of flattened, lying about on the clematis. So what I'm going to do is trim those up. So I'm going to get right into the root, trim those up, give that clematis a little bit of space. That looks much better. And then these, I think I'm just going to take a couple of branches out here again, just to give all these, the rest of these plants, a little bit of space. That's looking a lot better. So it's just kind of giving everything a little bit of room to breathe. This sort of euphorbia here has got a little bit more space. Solomon's seal, again, that's pretty much done. I could probably chop that back actually. And then we've got I can't remember what the shrub is called, but again, I just want to give that a bit of room to branch out. And then the clematis has got a bit more room as well now. And then coming sort of behind here, so the clematis is there, just coming behind here. So all throughout our garden we have this horrible bramble bushes sort of popping up. They're so hard to get rid of. Their roots are just so deep, so you really can't, well, unless you spend a lot of time, you can't dig the roots out. So I end up just chopping them off at ground level. They do keep coming back, but yeah, that's the best I can do. So I'm just going to chop that back. All cleared up. For the time being anyway. So a little bit further up the flower bed we've got this lovely cherry tree, which is quite a young cherry tree, and then in here we've got some lady's mantle, and then there is an echinacea trying to come through there, but it's being shaded out by this cherry tree, by this branch here. So what I think I'm going to do, just to kind of give that echinacea a little bit more sunlight, I'm going to just chop this lower branch off. I think that'll be best. So I'm just going to come in here to where the branch meets, chop that off. And that's just giving that echinacea a little bit more light to hopefully flourish a little bit more. Alright guys, so I hope this video was helpful, just showing you how I sort of maintain some of the flowers in my garden. So I've just got these lupins left to do, so I'm going to deadhead those, but there's some really nice blooms still going to come up, which is fantastic. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.